Welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. I'm Don Helbig, alongside Ryan Sir, a milestone episode for us, number 50. Ryan, how you
I'm
doing?
doing great. I feel like a 50 podcast old human being today. How do you feel?
I feel good. I mean, it's that's a lot of
It
podcasts. A lot of times people get into this and they're not real consistent with it. They might do it once a month, once every 6 weeks, maybe a couple times a month. But we've been pretty much every week, unless something came up that neither of us could get around, and it's been great with the consistency. So it's been a lot of
Yeah, I
fun.
agree. It has been a lot of fun. There have been a couple times when we had technical difficulties. I think that accounts for most of the times when we didn't have a show on the night we wanted to. Um, I know you were out of town at one point. I think we didn't do a show that time. And then we took the week between Christmas and New Year's off because who would listen to our podcast and during that week? So we'll probably do that again this year. But other than that, yeah, real consistent almost every single week. But yeah, so episode 50, we've made it very, very far. But if you
Yeah, we have, and we continue to evolve and find different things to talk about every week. And it's always good to see the different, the feedback that we get from our audience, and we really appreciate those who tune into us every week to see what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
exactly. And speaking of which, huge response. We always try to go so small scale with this stuff of like, yeah, send us a private message if you want a T-shirt, and then we get blown up with it. So we were able to hammer a lot more of that out. We will have pictures of the T-shirts soon, and we will put that on social media. What we have been able to determine is that shirts are $25. That includes shipping. Otherwise, like if you're local,
Anywhere in the United
yeah, anywhere in the
States.
United States. And if you're super local, then we can just meet you at, Stricker's Grove or something, if you're in the Cincinnati area. But yeah,
Yeah.
so follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP. Check us out on your favorite podcast apps. And then, obviously on YouTube, we do have a video version, and the video version is actual video. It's not just the audio with a picture of our logo or anything stupid like that. It's got visual aids and stuff for those of you who are more visual people like me. Um, but yeah, so very, very cool. Don, what do you want to talk about today?
I was thinking, Ryan, a place that you and I absolutely love, one of our favorite places on earth. It is Universal Orlando Resort. So I thought that you and I might discuss tonight what each of us feel are our top five can't miss attractions when you go to Universal. I mean, these are the things you have to do. And if you walk, out at the end of the night and you've done these five things that you and I recommend, and it may be more than five if our lists are different. But if you do that, you've had a good day. You've had a great visit. You got your money's
Yeah,
worth.
yeah. And to clarify, so the way that this is going to work, Don made a list of five. I made a list of five. There probably will be some overlap. There probably will be some not overlap. But we do not know what each other's lists are. So this will be very, very interesting even for us. But the way that I approach this, and I assume you did the same way too, Don, was that it's not so much the top five attractions as in like Incredible Hulk is huge and Velocicoaster's huge and stuff. It's more like if I happen to find myself down in Orlando for one day and I had time for five attractions, these would be the ones that I would personally want to hit.
Exactly. And that's how I approached it too. And that's why it's going to be different than what our listeners are going to expect us to say. And I think that's a good thing. Because there's a lot more to Universal than just those signature roller coasters that they have.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is going to be really exciting. Do you want to take the first one or should I take the first one?
I'll go ahead and throw the first one
Yeah.
out there. And for me, if you're going to go to Universal in Orlando, you absolutely have to see the Bourne Stunt Spectacular. That is the best show that I've ever seen in the amusement theme park industry.
Don, I did not put that on my list, but I wish I had thought about that because I could not agree more. I mean, we've talked about the Born Stunt Show on this show before, but I agree that may be the best show that I've ever seen. I could see that every day.
And when you and I saw that in November, and it was one of the first things we did,
Mhm.
I thought if that's all we did the rest of the day, it was worth our visit there because that was just an amazing show. And you walked out, or just so many wow moments with it that for me was the one thing that you absolutely have to do when you're going to Universal.
Yeah, and for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, it's Universal Studios, so the actual Studios park in Florida. And it is based off the Bourne Identity. And the basic premise of the show, it is a stunt show, so it follows a loose storyline where it's this spy that does James Bondy kind of things. But the big wow thing is that there's this huge IMAX screen, and you never know what's real and what's on the screen because it's such a high resolution. And then they'll bring out full cars as props. They have fire, they have water.
Yeah,
Just oh my gosh, such a
yeah, amazing.
yeah.
But before we move on, let's qualify this. In order to do what's on our top five, you're gonna have to buy the two-part ticket. You're gonna have that.
Yeah, yeah, you'd be foolish not to, because most of the people that are out there that are coaster enthusiasts probably typically prefer Islands of Adventure. But for me, for the uniqueness and stuff, which is a huge value to me, Universal Studios is really the one. But before we go any further, why don't you tweet at us at attractions_GRP and tell us what your favorite Universal Studios attraction is? I don't care if it's Florida, Hollywood, Japan, or wherever. Let us know. We'd love to hear. All right, I think it's my turn. I chose Men in Black Alien Attack is another one.
Not on my
Yep,
list. Not on my list. Not even in the consideration pool. But
really.
I know a lot of people, love that attraction. I can see why it's on your list. What do you like about it, Ryan?
So the thing that always impressed me about the big down south parks for their dark rides is when they have buildings that are multiple stories tall because it's so incredibly immersive. So like when you ride a dark ride at most theme parks, you're looking at dioramas essentially. But with this, it's got buildings that are 3 and 4 stories tall, and you're shooting aliens that are 150 feet away, and it's a shoot 'em up game. And I know publicly I kind of dog on those things a little bit like on social media and stuff. But the reality is this one's like legitimately fun. It's exciting. It follows the same storyline as like every other ride of this type where it's like, this is just a simulation. Oh, wait, no, the aliens really did attack. You got to get the aliens. And then, oh, wait, no, it was just a simulation, that sort of stuff. But I think that just the immersiveness. You go through like city streets. I don't know what city Men in Black takes. I don't know if it's like a fictional city or if it's New York City or something. But there's mailboxes, there's fire hydrants, just everything. Facades of buildings. There's one point toward the end of the ride where you go through like a like not a metal detector, like an X-ray kind of thing, and you find out that the car that's opposite you is full of aliens, and the person who shoots it makes the other car spin a bunch, and you get like 100,000 points. That's a good Easter egg there for you, but very, very cool ride. So Don, why don't you tell me your next one? Or do you have any final thoughts on Men in Black?
No, no. Like I said, I've experienced that attraction several times. I like it, but not good enough to get in my top
Okay.
five.
All right. Well, what's another one in your top five?
Well, the next one of my top five, I think this is going to be pretty much on everybody's list, is going to be the Jurassic World Velocicoaster. For me, it's as much about the theming and just the setting of that ride. Some great photo opportunities, so even if you don't ride it, you can enjoy it. So I had that as number two on my list. It's I don't know that the ride itself, I wouldn't, if it was a standalone without all the theming in that, I don't think it would be in the top five. But I think just the storytelling component of it, how they've got it themed, it's nice, it's immersive. Um, it's not just another roller coaster when you're riding it because of all of that.
Oh, I did not put that on my top five. I'm just kidding. I totally put it on my top five. So we finally have
Hey, so we're one
yeah,
and
we
one
have
right now.
finally have an
One and
intersection.
one.
Yeah. So I agree. If it was out in the middle of a field, it would not be nearly as good. But what ride would be? When it integrates with the
Right.
terrain, when it has theme and stuff, it makes a huge amount of difference. And that's one of those rides where the ride itself is phenomenal. It's a 10 out of 10, but the queue is just as good too. There's a very famous scene in it where you see the roller coaster train go by, and then you have like like from your perspective, it looks like a velociraptor's chasing after them. So I love
Right.
that part. What's your favorite element on the ride? Like, what's your favorite part of the ride itself?
I think going through to get on the
Really?
ride, just all of those things. Yeah, I think just the storytelling component of it. The ride itself is good, but I like the storytelling component, as much, if not better, than the ride itself.
Yeah, I agree. I would say like the like as far as like roller coaster elements are concerned, that part where it goes over the lake and it kind of does like a zero G roll or
Yeah,
whatever manufacture them,
yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
fine.
whatever Intamin's calling those things. That's my favorite like element of the actual like physical ride experience. But you're right, like the queue itself, it's like I mean, you have to ride the ride, but in hindsight, if it's like you can ride the ride without the queue, or you can just walk through the queue, you might want to choose to walk through the queue every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's it's a lot of fun. The other part of that too is you're having, you're kind of immersed in all the stuff as you're going through there, and then it's your turn to ride. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, we're ready to ride. You almost, wish it continued even longer, with all the other
Yeah,
parts.
I agree. And a lot of it, it looks that whole area looks very good and looking like the movie Jurassic Park. Because they have. It was funny because I saw Jurassic Park in theaters in like '93 when it came out, and I love that movie because I was right at the perfect age for that. I would have been 10 years old, but I didn't notice until we were down there for IAPA that the building right next to Velocicoaster is like identical to that main building. Um, in the movie, when the kids are being chased by the velociraptors toward the climax of the movie. I had no
Yeah,
idea. I never picked up on that because I'm kind of stupid, but very, very cool. Okay, I think it's my turn. Yeah, you did Veloci.
it is
Yeah, it
your
is.
turn.
Okay. I chose the Harry Potter Forbidden Journey ride. And so a little bit of background on that. That's the oldest one. That's from 2008 or 9. It's in Islands of Adventure. You go on a magical tour using those Kimbo arms. You're on the vehicle. It simulates you flying on a broom. The arm is on a track. It's just it's a technological marvel. I'm not a big Harry Potter fan. I've never seen a movie. I've never read a book, but this ride is just absolutely incredible, and I can't say enough about it. What do you think? I know you don't love the screen ride so much, but what are your thoughts on it?
It was just outside my top five. I think that whole Harry Potter section, it's just amazing. It's incredible. The attention to detail. You do feel like you stepped right into the movie. So Ryan, if you ever watch a Harry Potter movie, you're going to feel that way. I'm not a super big Harry Potter fan, but I've watched all the movies, and just walking around and you see the dragon with the fire and all that. It's incredible, and that ride, is part of that whole experience there. Uh, Tremendous ride. Like I said, it was just outside my top five, but not my favorite kind of ride. So that's why it fell out of the top five.
Yeah, and honestly, just to forewarn, most of the people listening to this podcast would probably be fine, but I do see a lot of people on the exit steps coming out, sitting there trying to hold back their regurgitation as a result of the general nature. The ride isn't that extreme, but it does have moving parts along with moving screens, so a lot of people can't
Yeah,
tolerate.
don't get on it right after you've eaten
Yeah,
something.
unless yeah, especially something that would look gross coming back up, but um, yeah.
But no, I mean, it's like I said, it's an outstanding ride, but just not my type of ride. So that's why it fell out of my top
Okay,
five.
yeah, completely fair. Have you ever seen the projection show that they do? They do a couple different
Yeah,
ones. I don't remember if they had it when we were down there for IAPA, but the last time I was down there on business, and David, who's been on the show several times, he and I went to Universal because we had a free day, and they did a show that was about like the different like houses, like Hufflepuff. I don't know enough. I'm going to offend somebody if I get one of these wrong, but they did this stuff, and it was a lot of
a lot of big words in Harry
right.
Potter.
Yeah, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, and whatever. Um, but they did a lot of projections, and they had a little bit of pyro, but it was like the pyro wasn't there just to say they had pyro. It was like it would interact with the projection. So imagine like a dragon breathing fire, and the fire goes up the side of the castle, and then the castle shoots a firework up like perfectly in line. So tons of stuff that can be done, tons of stuff that is done. Don, what's your next one?
My next one, and this is a favorite of mine. It is the Dudley Do Right's Ripsaw Falls. Love that ride. Big, water ride fan of all the water rides I've been on. That's my favorite. You get soaked on that ride. The 75-foot drop. I mean, it feels twice as tall as that when you're going down it. But just so much fun, and it was a lot of fun. To do with family and friends. When my wife and daughter, one of the first times that we went to Universal, and my daughter was just tall enough to ride it. I mean, it was just so much fun, and just so memorable. We talk about it to this day. So that is on my list of an attraction that you have to do when you're at Universal Orlando.
Yeah, I've ridden that before. I'm not a huge water park guy or water ride guy because I hate having like my shoes soaked and stuff because that just makes me
It
miserable.
doesn't last long there in Florida. Okay, so if you're in the Midwest or something, yeah, you might walk around 6, 8 hours with your socks and your shoes soaked.
Mm.
But there, 30 minutes later, you don't even know you went on a water ride.
Yeah, well, I don't know, the humidity makes it harder to dry, but, very cool ride. So, it is like a shoot the chutes, right, if I'm recalling correctly?
Yeah, yeah.
But what's really unique about it, and I think it still has this element is
The story element, yeah, I like that part of
right.
it. That it's got the characters. The other part of it for me, it's an original attraction.
Mhm.
I love experiencing rides at parks that have been there since day one, and that's one of them there. And it's just, again, it's something that you do with family and friends. You laugh, you have fun. You might want to do it again, and you talk about it years
Mhm.
later. That's what I like
Yeah,
about it.
and it's funny because, Universal Islands of Adventure has tons of day one attractions. It is a newer park. It opened in '99, I think. But Universal Studios Florida only has 3 day one attractions. Do you know what they
Hmm.
are? Can you guess?
Top of my head,
Okay,
no.
one's
What?
obvious, the other
What do you?
2 are not. E.T.,
Yeah, ET,
Horror
right?
Makeup Show, and
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. We saw that.
we
That was
did,
fun.
and, Hollywood Pets, where they have the actual, like, pet actors, or I think maybe it's called pet
Yeah.
actors, but nonetheless, horror makeup I didn't put on the list, but that's cool. We'll get to some honorable mentions.
Real quick though, how good was the woman actor in that show when we saw it last year? I mean, she was phenomenal.
Yeah, oh, yeah, just, man, horror makeup is so freaking funny, and I remember when the first time I saw when we saw it together, that was the 3rd time I saw it, I think, and, the show, I was listening to there is a Universal Orlando official podcast where they do a great job. They're between 15 minutes and a half hour, but they just hit on one thing, like your guide to horror makeup, your guide to ET or whatever, you know. But the horror makeup show one, they were talking about how it's evolved over the years, but they've never like completely rescripted it. So it's a 30 something year old show now from 90 or 91 whenever the park opened. Um, and they just made the references and stuff to pop culture more relevant, but the show's been about the same. But
Mhm.
they had a woman on there that what played I think she goes by like JT or A. It's like like the person's name is initial, so it can be a guy or a girl, depending on who's actor. Kind of like for Poseidon's Fury, how it was always Taylor, because I could go either way, you
Right.
know. Um, but, but yeah, that's such a great show. The first time I saw that, I was like, "I don't wanna see this. I don't really care about horror makeup. This is like" I'm nerdy about a bunch of stuff, but I don't really care about horror movies that much, but, you do learn a thing or 2 about horror makeup, but the point is, it is the funniest damn show. You could see all 5 or whatever it is shows per day, and you would still laugh so hard because they're so good at improvising and stuff, and, they pick on little kids in the audience, and it's just so funny, you know?
All right. We regressed, but now it's back to you.
Okay, the next one I have is, I don't have the full name because I can't hold my breath this long, but I just put down Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure. So I think the full name is Harry Potter Presents Hagrid's Magical Motorbike Adventure at Universal Resort in Florida, United States, North America, or it's got a long name, and I don't know what the whole name is, but fantastic ride. It is a roller coaster. Lots of really cool elements. The story is what's most important, like most others. But there are 2 things about the ride that I really enjoyed. For one, it's a motorcycle, so it's a motorcycle and a sidecar. So if you sit in the sidecar, it kinda just feels like a normal roller coaster, but if you're riding the motorcycle side, it actually feels like you're jetting along in this so the motorcycle side's the better side. Right.
Yeah, I had the motorcycle side, and really enjoyed it. Again, great with the storytelling component, the theming of it. Did not make my top
It
five
did
though.
not.
So it was another one that. No, I mean I have other things that that are different that I can't get anywhere else. You can get a roller coaster ride elsewhere, so those didn't necessarily um, make my list because there were some other things that I couldn't get anything close to it elsewhere. So that's why I put it on my
Yeah,
list.
you know what? And, typically, um I would agree because it's kinda like when I go to Disney, like, yeah, as we've stated on here, I'm going to Disney in a couple weeks. I'm not particularly excited to ride, like, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train because that's just a really nice mine train. but Tower of Terror, I can't get anywhere, you know? So that's what makes me particularly
Yeah.
excited. So I agree. But the motorcycle element is my favorite as far as the roller coaster is concerned. Spoiler alert. So pause for go forward 15 seconds if you don't want to hear this. But there is a drop track. You know, the drop track element is really, really cool. Lots of launches in it. There's a lot of onboard audio and stuff. And apparently, like there's the button, there's working buttons, and like if you hit them at the right time, they do something. But I couldn't figure that out. Universal's loaded with Easter eggs.
Yeah, a lot of Easter
Yeah.
eggs. Too many.
Okay. You know what's funny is uh, speaking of this, I want to bring this up because I'm thinking about it, but I'm totally breaking the cadence of the show. But when I put out that tweet on our Twitter saying, "What's the longest line you've waited in?" and somebody said Millie, as in Millennium Force. What they said, Millie, when it first opened, I waited like 4 hours or something like that, and I said, "Oh, what song did you pick?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And they said Millie, and I read Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket somehow. Yeah, I don't know where
Yeah.
my I got short circuited, but so that's oh my word. All right, I think the next one's you, Don.
Another water ride in Jurassic Park. And, it's one of the first rides that I rode when I first went to Universal in Orlando. And it was, memorable with my wife and my daughter. She was only maybe 4 or 5 at the time. And just, how freaked out and frightened she was of the dinosaurs, especially there's this scene with the T-Rex, is coming down at you, ready to chomp you. And, I still remember that to this day. And that was, gosh, how many years ago? And that's why it's on my list, just because, it was fun, it was memorable, one of the first rides I ever did there, so that's that special meaning um, to that. And also, just being a dinosaur fan, I think I like the animatronics. I think they do an outstanding job of making those dinosaurs, look real. So that's why it's on my list at number 4.
Yeah, so, two different things, trivia. So did you know legend has it, and I've heard this from everybody, so I assume it's true because the more people say it, the more real it becomes. Steven Spielberg, when he rode the ride, he wasn't fond of like thrill rides, so they let him ride all the way to the top of the hill, and then they let him get out and and just leave the ride because he didn't want to do the splashdown.
Well, I've heard that story.
Yeah,
But again, it to me, and when you're at Universal, they were one of the if not the first parks to really do a great job with the storytelling of their different attractions. So even if the ride itself wasn't outstanding as a standalone, just that storytelling, the theming all around it, just the setting, that's what separates the rides there from other parks.
yeah, I completely agree. And what Universal does, they do very, very well. Let me ask you this though. I'm gonna put you on the.
But it's not on your list. This does not make
It
your
did not
list.
make my list, no, and it's probably because it wasn't top of sight, top of or out of sight. It was like not top of mind, out of sight, out of mind because I didn't ride it in November. Um, but
Yeah,
what do you prefer, Jurassic Park or dinosaurs at Animal Kingdom?
Jurassic Park.
Do you, I kind of think the same thing. I haven't ridden dinosaurs in like 8 years. Hopefully, that'll change soon. But I remember when I rode them within a few days of each other, liking Jurassic Park more. Cool. I think it's me now, and
It is
I
you. It
chose
is you.
E.T.
You're
the
fourth.
ride. E.T. the extraterrestrial the ride. E.T. Needs no introduction. Steven Spielberg movie, and it's got Drew
Yeah.
Barrymore in it as a child. It famously has Reese's Pieces because M&M's turned down the spot, and then Reese's Pieces became huge, and M&M's could have had it, but they turned down the spot, so they didn't get it. That's another one of those where the queue is almost as excellent as the ride. One thing that comes to mind is that it has particular scents. They do a very good job with the scents. That scene when you go in and it's like the forest scene where it's got the speak and spell and stuff. When that smell hit me, it brought back the feels because I just remembered the last time I was in that exact same building.
Yeah.
But the cool part is this is the first one. My understanding is that this is the first ride that was a sequel to a movie. So this does not follow E.T. the movie. This is a sequel where E.T.'s on Earth and he asks you, little Billy or whatever the kid's name was, to come to his homeworld to rescue it. So that's why you go to the is it Planet Red? I can't remember. I don't remember what his planet's called. It does have, like, an actual, like, alien-y name, but, like, there's something they call it in the movie. But you get to see that planet for the first time. And that's when you got the "Welcome home," that kinda stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I will admit is that a lot of that ride needs rehab in the worst way. A lot of the animatronics were in bad shape, and you can't normally say that about Universal stuff, so hopefully they give it some TLC soon, but, you're in a suspended car, and a good Easter egg is that if you sit in the front, there's actually a basket with ET in it, and ET will poke up every once in a while, and, like, the scene where you come across the cops, he ducks down into it. So, what do you think? Is ET on your list?
It is good, not good enough to make my top
Well, you only
5, so it will not be my
you
next
you only have
one.
1 left,
It
right?
does make the top 10 though.
Okay.
But we don't have time for 10. We only have time for
That's
5
true,
rides,
time is
5
money.
attractions when you're there. So it didn't. And when you're talking about the first one I threw out, the Bourne Stunt Spectacular, you're talking about 45 minutes of your time right there just to watch that, plus whatever amount of time you waited in line for it.
Right.
So you only have time for 5, but if I had time for 10, yeah, it's on the
Okay.
list.
So, how many do you have left? We had a little bit of crossover.
I have
Okay,
one.
what's your last one?
I have one. My last one, and this is going to probably be a surprise to you, but it's the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, that 3D
Mm,
motion simulator, dark ride. I had never been on anything like that when I first experienced it back in 1999. And, again, I go back to storytelling. You walk through the queue and you've got, the office and everything there. And then just some of the, how it feels like you're dropping. And it was just incredible. So memorable. One of the first ones I did there. I've never been on a ride like that. So it stands out to me, and I want to relive those memories every time I go there. So I make sure that that is on my list of attractions to do.
yeah, that's another one where, I probably should have put that on, and there's actually a couple. Universal's such a good park that it's so hard to choose. Um,
And even the entrance looks great, doesn't it? With Spider-Man out front. I think it
What
looks
I
great.
love is the queue, and Men in Black's like this too. When we talk about these, like, in Men in Black, when you go through, and there's that whole floor below you where you can see like the aliens working on the computers and stuff. This one has like you're going through the Daily Planet, so there are like people in there working, and there's typewriters and stuff. And I think they actually like update the technology so it's not like computers on the desks with big CRT monitors or anything like that. Like they modernize it. Like I remember with when I saw Terminator, which was a stunt show that was replaced by the Bourne Spectacular Stuntacular, they had like the latest iPad in the video because they like reshoot it every once in a while or edit it or whatever to make sure that it doesn't feel like it's 30 years old. But yeah, that should have been on my list. I've done a great service to you and many others. But my favorite part is when you're falling and Spider-Man catches
Yes.
you. And the first time I rode it, I grabbed on because I thought we were going down a hill. Oof.
Yeah, exactly. And then like when he like jumps on the front of your car almost like that, where it feels like he's done that. I think it's like I said, it's just very memorable, a lot of fun. That sensation that you're falling.
Mhm.
Those are just the things I remember, so I want to relive that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
because I haven't done it over and over again, it does feel like the first time that you've experienced it because it is something that I would only do maybe once a year, once every 2 or 3 years.
Mm,
So it wasn't something that I'm doing 4 or 5 times a week.
yep, completely right. All right, and then we both, I think, have a list of honorable mentions. I'll go
Do you have a fifth one? Do you have a fifth one, or we hit everything?
no, because we crossed over with a couple. So,
Okay,
so
okay.
as
What's your honorable mentions?
so, I put on my honorable mentions. I have the horror makeup show, which
Yeah,
we
it's on
discussed.
mine.
Honestly, that and Born were both are kind of like you could bump those up into the top five to potentially
Easily.
too. Um, I still put Poseidon's Fury on there, even though it's closed now, because we're recording this episode in the future. But if you're listening to it in the past, make sure you ride that because it's going to be gone someday. Yeah, but yeah, Poseidon's Fury was that walkthrough attraction. It had the water tunnel. It had fire. It was some people hated it, some people loved it. I fell into the camp that absolutely loved it. But the one thing that I put as an honorable mention, but now that I'm thinking about it, I probably would have bumped out maybe Hagrid's for was The Mummy. The Mummy Returns. What
Yes,
a
the Mummy
great
was great.
ride.
Yeah, that's on my honorable mentions too. I have Cat in the Hat.
Oh, great,
You know,
great.
not like I said, not the, it's especially if you have young children.
Mm,
It's a lot of fun. I remember, my first visit to Universal, and my daughter loved it and wanted to ride it again and again and
hmm
again. We ended up riding it 14 times that day. She couldn't get enough of it, but you know, in its simplest form, storytelling again, when you're going through there. And if you grew up watching The Cat in the Hat, you know exactly what that story is. And, you're immersed into that story when you're going through it. So I put The Cat in the Hat on there. I put the Hulk on there. I do like the Hulk.
hmm
It's a lot of fun. So I had that on my honorable mention. And I put their carousel that they have in the Seuss Landing area. I put that on there. Big fan of carousels. Every park that has a carousel, I'm going to ride it. So you know what, some people, they like to get their coaster credits. I like the carousel credits and train credits. So I'm going to do those kind of things. But I think we both threw out some good things, and we'd like to hear from you. So go to our Twitter. It's attractions_GRP. Let us know. What are your can't miss attractions at Universal Orlando? Both parks included, and we'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. So the only other one I put on there, and this was a sympathy one because I don't like this ride, and I don't think anybody else does, but I do feel like rides have emotions, so I did put Hollywood's Rip Ride Rocket on there. Um, because I feel like that ride should be discussed because it is a major attraction. Um, let me so
It is fun. I prefer that ride when it's kind of dusk. I'll ride it not early in the day, not in the middle of the day, and not the last thing I do at night. But if it's around 7 o'clock at night, 6:30 or something like that, right before they close over there, I will ride it at that time.
Yeah, a great night. I mean, it's visually a very cool ride. So for those of you who don't know, it is it's a roller coaster. I think Mauer makes it, but it's got a vertical lift hill. It's got a non-inverting loop, which is kind of cool. And the big gimmick of it is you get to pick the songs. So like there's it's like music themed, and you pick the song on your lap bar. There's a little screen, and you choose what song is playing. There's actually, did you know there's a secret menu too, Don?
Didn't know there was that,
So
but
it, so
I knew the basics.
So you the normal one, there's like 30 or whatever songs, and you put in the number of the one you want, or you click on the one you want, or whatever. But there's tons of more, dozens more songs. You can find the list online. Um, but what you do, from what I recall, is you hold down the logo, the ride logo, on your lap bar for 10 seconds, then it'll just say like put in the number, and you put in the 3-digit number that's associated with that, and then it'll play a song that you want. Like I did BB King, The Thrill Is Gone, because no roller coaster's ever been themed to that. Now have they? So I
No,
thought that was
no,
kind of
no.
cool. But the only downside is if you are a big stickler for getting the videos and the photos, because a big attraction for that one is that you can buy the video of your train going around and stuff like that, and it's synced to the music and so on. If you do one of the secret songs, you don't have that option. It's not in that database.
Yeah.
But the main thing, the reason why I don't like it is because Universal Studios, the studio side, looks a lot like a backlot as it's supposed to, and then they got this big freaking roller coaster there, which does not look like it should be there. Um,
No, it's definitely misplaced in that part of the park.
Yeah, if it was in the back of the park or something, it would probably be better, whatever. It's not the most comfortable ride. It is fun, don't get me wrong. It is very long, very, very long. A lot of the rides in
Yeah.
Florida are really long, though.
I
Um,
thought you'd have Jimmy Fallon on your list.
no, Jimmy Fallon, it's definitely a not skip, but it's not a must do. Because I think that's fantastic. That's another one where the line is about as good as, well, it's better. In this case, the line is like the waiting queue is better than the actual ride. The ride itself is very weak. Like you would expect something like that when they opened in like 1990, because you sit in the audience for the Today Show, and your thing rocks back and forth to a video. It's like whoop-de, you can get that at a seasonal park. But they have like, you're actually in the green room for NBC Studios, and they made a perfect replica of it, at least to my knowledge. And they have like actual like relics and stuff from like the Conan O'Brien era, the Jay Leno era, and stuff. So, and they have live entertainment. So it's supposed to be like, they remember the Ragtime Gals, the band that sings. It's guys, but they call them the Ragtime Gals. They like come out and they like warm up and they perform on the stage, and it's really cool. Um, so no, that's one of those where I wouldn't skip it, but I also, if I didn't get to ride it, that would probably be okay. Um, one of the ones I have not ridden yet, the one Universal attraction I have not ridden yet, and I was discussing this with my coworkers earlier today, Fast and the Furious. I've never gotten to ride that. I've been in line for it 3 different times, and it's broken down every time. But I understand I'm not missing a whole lot.
I've not done that one either.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you just run out of time.
Yeah, and
And
we
and based on what I'd heard from other people, it was like, if you got time, do it, but if not, don't worry about it. But you were right to bring up the Mummy as one of
yeah.
your honorable mentions, and it was on my list too. I thought that was a lot of fun. We did that one last year. Just again, really well themed, like everything there is.
What about Kong?
And uh, I'm okay with it. Again, if you got time, yeah. But
I
if you don't make,
I would
we're
say,
talking here about what you have to do, not what you
well, we're
want to
talking
do.
about honorable mentions now, so, but guess what? The park stayed open for
No,
2 more hours.
no. Go ahead and spend that time you would have done that trying some of the food.
Right,
That's a
exactly.
whole new episode for us too. We got to talk about the can't miss foods that are there too, because that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So once again, tweet us your favorite Universal Studios attractions underscore GRP on Twitter. Um,
And
so
tell us where we're out of our mind. Like, how can that make your top five list? Tell us if we're wrong about one of these top five things that we talked about too. We want to know. Let's make it conversational.
yeah. By the way, I wanted to bring up a couple different things, and I've been meaning to do this for a while. So in the comments, Jack Larimore. So thank you for commenting on our video. He meant we were talking about the racing carousel at Cedar Downs at Cedar Point, and
Yeah.
it's one of 2, and we couldn't figure out where the other one is. The other one's at Rise Playland in Rye, New York.
Yes. Right. Play. Yes. And I
So
knew that as soon as we got off we got done with the episode. I was like, why didn't I say that?
yeah, so I mean, I didn't really fact check that, but that does sound right, and he would know his stuff, so very cool.
No, he's right. Jack is right about that. And like I said, I don't know why I didn't remember that. And that's one of those parks, that we'll have to do an episode about Ride Playland too. A lot of history, a lot of tradition there.
Absolutely. So the other thing I wanted to bring up was John Blasdell comment on last week's video about merchandise. How I mentioned that Dollywood has the candle shops, and I'm concerned that if I buy a candle and it's in a bag, then it could melt and so on, and I don't want to carry it around. And he made the good point, and a lot of parks are for this. Dollywood does have like a delivery service, so you can either buy it and have it shipped to your room at Dreammore or Hearthsong if you're staying there, or I believe you can pick it up in the front of the park at the end of the day. So
You
very,
can,
very, very good
and we've done
solution.
that where you pick things up at the end of the night, and it's a great service that they provide there, so you're not lugging it around all day.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad we're better people now. And please, by all means, if we say something that you believe is incorrect or you have an opposing opinion, we will absolutely entertain it. So comment on the video, tweet at us, yell at us in person. Just don't make physical contact. I hate that. But all right. Cool. Well, yeah, Universal's such a fun park, and it's funny that we're getting hype about Universal, but I'm heading to Disney, but not Universal here in a couple weeks.
Well,
Uh,
we'll be talking about the Disney parks
we'll have
too
a
in
lot to
upcoming
discuss
episodes, and
because I haven't been there
and
in
we'll
8 years. So we got all that new Star Wars, Toy Story, Avatar, all that stuff is going to be new to me. But without further ado, it's time for a segment that we like to call the Pick Six. All right. I have the first
get it
story.
started.
I got the first one. All right. So, okay. So speaking of Walt Disney World, and I swear this was not planned, but Disney announced that they were extending a lot of their hours for the summer. All right. So, and the main thing, and the original story that I had written, was about how they actually extended Animal Kingdom, because Animal Kingdom typically doesn't have extended hours. So the rest of these aren't as big of a deal. Um, but check this out. So Magic Kingdom starting July 17th. So all this is right after we leave there. Magic Kingdom will be open from 9 a.m. until 11 p.m. So I pity the parents with the 4-year-old and the 2-year-old that are there from 9 a.m. until 11 p.m. But I could probably do it, and so could you. Um, That's going to be beginning July 17th, beginning July
Yes.
16th and going through July 22nd. Guests can enjoy Hollywood Studios for an extra half hour. They're going to open at 8:30 instead of 9 a.m. And then
That's a big deal.
it is, and resort hotel guests will open it. Will get there at 8. So good on them. July 16th through July 22nd, Animal Kingdom will be open at 8 a.m. instead of 9 a.m. and will close at 9 p.m. So Animal Kingdom, and they made a big deal about this on the in the actual article. They used to close at 5 for years, and then they pushed it to 6, and now they're pushing a little bit better. And during these days, Walt Disney World hotel guests can begin at 7:30 a.m. Imagine hitting Animal Kingdom at 7:30 a.m. And then there's no news as to whether or not Epcot is going to be doing, anything of the sort. They haven't announced. Epcot, I think, is open till 9, or I think that's kind of like your seasonal fireworks show when they do
Yeah.
their show at 9, but they close at 9. But yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's subject to change. I think we might see Epcot get a little bit extended hours too before they're all, they're into mid-July here.
I agree. I'm surprised it's not announced with everything else, but maybe there's probably, I mean, you personally know, because I know that parks you've worked for have been like, you know what, tonight we're going to stay up until 11 for various reasons. It's rare, but I imagine it's a logistical nightmare. Now, imagine that times 80 people, you know? So for every one person you had that stay that late, we're going to have 80 people stay that late. That's kind of the situation they're dealing with. So they're probably just hammering out the logistics and seeing if they want to do a half hour, or whatever. All right. Don, number two.
Story number
Don't be
two,
Bucky's.
very
Don't be
exciting
Bucky's. Don't be
for
Bucky's.
me, and
Don't be
I
Bucky's. Don't be
think for
Bucky's.
you too. Okay, we just had the world's largest Buc-ee's, the country's largest Buc-ee's open in Tennessee, Sevierville, right off exit 407. Rave reviews, just packed, backing up the interstate worse than it already was to get in there, which is all great because that means they're all wanting to go to Buc-ee's. But a new one, the next one, is going to be coming into Florida. It is going to be near Ocala. I always wanted to find a reason to go to Ocala. The governor there is pushing hard to get that built quickly. So we should see some things, the groundbreaking and possibly open a year from now. Who knows?
That's fantastic. Yeah, I haven't been to the 407 Bucky's yet, the new one in Sevierville. I imagine you're going to go there before me, but
Oh yeah,
I'll probably be there in the fall.
I'm gonna do a meetup there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm doing two meetups. I'm doing one in Richmond, Kentucky, and then I'm going to, a couple hours later, I'll be doing one at the one in Sevierville. That is going to be on August 17th. So more details to come on that. We'll tweet it out on our channels and that. But if you are a Buc-ee's fan and you live in an area where you can get there within an hour or so, whatever, just take some time off work. Let's have some fun and let's go shop Buc-ee's.
Yeah. So we'll call the morning one breakfast with Don and the afternoon one lunch with Don.
Exactly,
Per-
exactly. So we're going to have some of those meetups. We'll take photos and things. It's going to be fun.
All
It's going to be
right.
a lot of fun.
Perfect. So this is this next story. This is number 3. This is something that I wish more parks would do. Worlds of Fun is releasing signature barbecue sauces. Um, if food is really becoming an attraction at different theme parks, I think that having things you can take home. I mean, Dollywood has it, but I think every park should have its own barbecue sauce, and I feel like a lot of parks have their own craft beers. I'm not a big beer drinker and stuff, but man, if my local park had its own barbecue sauce or its own like chip seasoning, like the park has great chip seasoning. If they sold that, I would buy it in a heartbeat. But very very cool. But yeah, that's Worlds of Fun. They're doing a lot for their 50th, but this is definitely something unique. What do you think about it?
They've done different releases of their barbecue sauce over the years. I think their newest one is attributed to Zambezi Zinger. I've had the different bottles there that I've either had shipped to me or I was in a position where I could get them at different off-site meetings and things. It's really good. It's really good barbecue. It is unique to their park. There was one that was kind of like a hot spicy one I did a couple years ago. It was great on burgers. So it is something that, as you mentioned, you'd love to see more parks do this. You would think with all the different kind of barbecue places that parks are opening in recent years that be a natural fit for them to add these, and maybe we'll see that moving forward a little bit. But yeah, Worlds of Fun, they've got their own unique thing there, and if you're going to that park, be sure to load up on the barbecue sauce. And the great thing about it too is it's not that expensive. It's a pretty good sized bottle, and it's right around like 5.99, something like that for it. So I would definitely you know check that out, buy a few bottles, bring some home for your friends, and it's definitely got its unique flavor, different than any other kind of barbecue sauce that you're going to buy in just regular stores.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I do like about you mentioned the price point of like 5.99, and don't hold us to that because we're not looking at the price.
It's around that
Yeah,
range.
but I really hate it when things like that are where it's kind of like part of it is they're trying to sell a product and they're trying to make a margin and stuff, but also they're trying to show off what they have, and it's it's kind of like when they sell a T-shirt and it's like $45, and it's like that's almost like telling people not to look at your billboard. So this being like inexpensive, I think is really really cool. But
Yeah, and it's not a situation where it's just barbecue sauce and they slapped a label on it. I mean, it is their own thing. It is something you only get at Worlds of Fun. So that makes it different than anything else, and it really is good barbecue sauce. So get the Worlds of Fun, check it out, or if you know somebody that lives in the Kansas City area, have them get some for you and ship it to you.
yeah, and that would be a world of fun. Don, what is
That's
number
right.
number 4 today?
We have, Ryan, Chance Rides. They merged with a private equity firm. Those kind of things, mergers and acquisitions, not my specialty. But normally, these things are okay. What do you think?
So, um, I want to be clear, and I don't know a whole lot about the inner workings of Chance Rides, and I don't know this private equity firm or their intentions. But sometimes it's really good, but often it's not. So, a private equity firm's job, they always put out a press release like this where we're so excited to have this partner, Apex Capital, Apollo Global Management, heard of them before, Blackstone, all these. And they're like, we're so partner with them and this. Okay, so here's what it breaks down to. There are two sides of this coin. The positive is Chance Rides is going to have access to resources and capital they did not have before. So if that was a problem, this is a solution.
Yeah, so that's why I looked at that. For me, it was like maybe it's a good thing it's the cash infusion, those kind of, that part of it.
Right. Number two, private equity firm is not in the ride manufacturing business. So they have one interest, and that's making money. They're not about the
Making money and reducing cost.
exactly. So what they typically do is what they're probably going to do because chance what they would do. So okay, Blackstone and or actually Apollo Global Management bought Great Wolf Lodge. And they've done something weird where they and Blackstone formed a company together that co-owns it now. But ultimately, the intention was they bought Great Wolf Lodge because Great Wolf Lodge was hurting, and their intention was to spin it off. They're going to get it to a point where it's super profitable, spin it off into its publicly traded company, wash their hands of it, and make a ton of money in the process. That's what private equity firms do. Chance Rides is not big enough to do something like that. So probably what they want to do is they want to make it so they're cutting costs and they're improving the portfolio in a way that's like they're selling more stuff and then probably sell to a bigger dog like Intamin or something like that.
Mhm.
That would be my guess. I do not have inside information in this. I can speak about this because they are not a publicly traded, neither of them are publicly traded companies, but that's typically what happens. Um, I'm a little worried for Chance Rides in this instance, but at the same time, we don't know what we don't know. So don't get concerned if you're passionate about chance rides until you hear something, which will be
Right.
a very long time down the road.
All right. What's next, Ryan?
Okay, so the next one is well, here's a more lighthearted one. So woman sneaks into Disneyland and okay, the title, let me just read you the title first. Woman sneaks into Disneyland and hides and ride to avoid arrest. So, she actually snuck in, the cops were looking for her, and she hid in the line for Big Thunder Mountain. Oh, I don't know if she got to ride or not, but I'm assuming they caught her because they were able to report this. But how funny is that? Where if somebody's bold enough to sneak into the park, you'd think they would hide in like a warehouse or a backstage area, but nope, hops in line for Big Thunder Mountain. How about that?
Yeah, that was a little surprising that, they went to a ride where, there's a lot of people around and that, and you're kind of locked in once you get into the queue and everything there. I when I first saw that and they were talking about a ride, I was hoping that they weren't like inside the ride, because that could be, real dangerous if you're
Right.
out there and, the ride's going around and, they decided to hide out in one of the shacks or something like that that are, part of the theming of that ride. But um, it's not that hard to find people in that queue. I don't know if you've been on the one in Disneyland, but it's not that hard. When you go in there, you can look around and you can see pretty much everyone that's in there. So I would have picked a different, I would have picked a different ride if I were them to try to hide out in.
Yeah, I don't think that this was a strategy. I think this was a desperation thing. I think that was the first ride she saw, and she just ran to it because she knew she was being chased. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, but like I said, lighthearted. Um, didn't get away with it, and you're not going to if you try to do things like that. So just don't do it.
Oh yeah, and today I remember hearing story. I mean, not my parents, but like other adults, because my parents were way too square for this. But apparently, there was like a hole in the fence at Cincinnati, Coney Island, and like everybody knew about it, and you could just sneak in or whatever. Like you could never get away with that in today's world with the cameras and all that stuff. You get caught. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Last
right.
one. Pick six. Number
The
six.
final story is the 4th of July this week. A lot of celebrations going on around the industry. Some of them were 4 or 5 nights long. Some of them, specifically to the 4th of July. Um, a lot of parks did it really well. Uh, Ryan, which ones impressed you from what you saw, either in person or perhaps you saw video online or social media photos and just read different stories about what the parks did?
I didn't read too much into what other parks did. I can speak from my experience, and I'm really glad to have this opportunity because I know some of them listen to the show. But I was at Kings Island. They did. I didn't know that they were gonna do an extended show. So, because I know that last year they did Fun Fireworks in 50, which is a huge show, but they didn't do anything special for the fourth. So I didn't really plan on going to Kings Island. But I just found out a day or two before that they're gonna do a 15-minute show as opposed to like a 6-minute show like they normally do. So I was like, yeah, we'll check it out because I've never seen them handle, with this new age of shows, how they do it. And boy, am I glad I went. The show that they had, I don't know if you got to see anything or got to see any preview, but Fun Fireworks in 50 was the best. All right, that's out, it's off the table. This was, if Fun Fireworks in 50 was 100%, this was a 97%. This was so freaking good. They had laser projections on the Eiffel Tower of like Neil Armstrong planting the flag on the moon. The drones did a bunch of stuff. That 1776 and um, the American flag and Lady Liberty and just the way that they did the lasers coming off the Eiffel Tower. It was just like everybody, people started chanting USA after the show was over because it was just that good. So if you're listening to the show and you had something to do with it, my hats off to you, sir or ma'am. That was freaking awesome, and that was the best way I could have spent my 4th of July. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that was an excellent show, and a couple other ones that stood out to me. I really liked, what Cedar Point did. They had that great setting there when you've got the water, the beach, and all those kind of things. I think there's a lot of things with Cedar Point, just the setting that you don't find anywhere else, so that makes it a little bit unique. It's not just another fireworks show. And Six Flags Fiesta Texas. The last few years they've been knocking out of the park with their 4th of July celebration. I mean, it is just, just an explosion of fireworks. It's a big, colorful pageant in the sky. So I like what they did too. So those are the three that stand out to me as the parks that, really did it well. And, everybody who experienced those shows enjoyed it. And, went home. It was a great way to cap off your evening at the park.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, Fiesta Texas. I don't know exactly what they did this year, but I know in the past, several years actually in the past, that so for those of you who don't know, fireworks come from a spot. The spot is called a site. Normally, there's one. For a really big show, there's two. I believe that one year, Six Flags Fiesta Texas had like 10, like surrounding the park.
10 or
Yeah.
11 different spots. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that
Thousands and thousands of shells, going up from everywhere. And I was talking to a friend of mine that worked there. He was on top of a roller coaster like lift hill taking pictures, and they're going up right up underneath of him, coming up from there. There wasn't a place that they could hardly go in the park where they weren't firing them off from. So, yeah, very impressive there. But, Kings Island, Cedar Point, Fiesta, Texas, and there's other parks out there that all, did a phenomenal job with their shows. And it's nice to see that, that all these parks are stepping up their game and just giving guests that that great way to cap off that holiday at the park.
absolutely, yeah, that was. I had a really great time on the fourth seeing that show, and and having worked as a pyrotechnician, it's and I'm not saying this from a place of arrogance, but it's kind of like for the person that's ridden 500 coasters, the coaster in your local city's park may not be that impressive, because it's an old wooden coaster and they've ridden 130 of those. I've seen and been part of many, many fireworks shows. So to have one that really gets me this excited 24 hours later means that it was very, very well done. So hats off to everybody involved. All you pyrotechnicians out there, I feel you. I did it for a long time. I haven't done it for the last 2 years, but maybe I'll get back out there. But I'm too old for dealing with the heat. But you have no idea how physically taxing it is, how just being outdoors from 8 a.m. until midnight is on the hottest day of the year. It's sweaty, it's dirty, it's people get hurt. And I'm not when I say people get hurt, I don't mean like, Farmer Joe blows his fingers off. I'm saying you're moving around pallets and stuff, and people like tear their hands open on nails, and people get dehydrated. And oh, it's just the sacrifice that people put in to do those fireworks shows for you is innumerable. So if you're listening to this and you're involved in that industry in any way, hats off to you. So,
Yeah, it is a grueling job to have to put those shows on.
absolutely. All right. Well, another show in the books, Don, number 50. We're going to be on the second half of our first 100 shows starting next week. Do you realize that?
It's amazing, and it's a lot of different shows. The good thing about it is we don't run out of things to
I
talk
was just
about.
thinking
Yeah,
about
there's always
that.
something different, and we keep evolving, and we keep doing different things and finding different things that are interest to our audience. And if you have show suggestions too, topics you want us to talk about, tweet that at us as well. We're open to anything. We're not married to any type of certain format, topic, or anything like that. We're going to get back to having some guests on again here soon too as well. So we'll be mixing that back into it. A lot of people we want to have on. This is their busy time of the year, so it's hard for us to get them to want to sit down for an hour, or not want to sit down, but have that time to sit down with us. So we'll get into late July here, and their schedules start to free up a little bit, and we'll have some really good guests coming on in the next few weeks.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And plus, like selfishly, when things are going, there's to people like me and like Don, and for those of you who are like on the marketing or even operations side of things, oftentimes the planning and the anticipation is the exciting thing. So that's why we worry about how to do a proper meal plan, how to have an enthusiast event when the parks are closed. But now that they're open, try to enjoy in the moment. That's why we talked about Cedar
Hmm.
Point and
Yeah, I think you're really gonna. Yeah, we talked Camden Park, and I think you're really gonna like some of the different parks that we talk about in the weeks ahead. And we isolate on different parks and talk about the different experiences that Ryan and I have had when we visited these parks. And it's one of those things that we know that you visited those parks as well. You're going to have your memories, your thoughts, your impressions of it. And that just makes great content for us on our social channels for you to just join the conversation and tell us what your experiences were there as well.
Yeah, and if there's any park that you feel like we should discuss that you think that would have a pretty good audience, chances are one or both of us have been there. So give us a shout. So make sure that you follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP. We are available on all your favorite podcast apps by searching for the Attractions Group Podcast. Same with YouTube, the Attractions Group Podcast. You can watch the video version. Sponsorship opportunities available. Shoot us a private message. You know who you are. Keep contacting us. We'll make it work.
That's right.
But awesome. Well, we'll see you. We'll see you next week, everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks, Don.
All right.